we're going to be going over how I would go about hollowing out this 3D scan. And that could be useful for 3D printing, various types of 3D printing, whether it be FDM, sand printing, which is pretty much metal sintering, but at a large scale. And of course, metal sintering. Because if you wanted to have this printed at, let's say, 2 feet tall or 1 foot tall, it's going to cost a lot if it's a solid chunk of iron, right? So let's go ahead and start this off. I'm going to create a new sculpt, and we're going to go with primitives. I'm just going to use this. This is actually, if you look at, it's called a polymesh, and this is how you would start most projects off, and how you would still start most projects off if you were using the desktop version of ZBrush. So let's go ahead and get this model. So I found this one on minifactory.com, and the user is Scan the World. And they used to have their own website, but now they're hosting all their models on the myminifactory.com. And I came across him here, and he comes with a set of 9 objects. You just download it, and it's going to give you an STL. And the STL cannot be used in ZBrush until you convert it. So the quickest way we can do that is using anyconf.com, and you just choose your file, and you will choose OBJ. That's the file format we're going to be turning this STL into, and then it will do its process, and you will download that. Now I already got mine's downloaded, so I'm going to import 3D model OBJ, right? File format OBJ. And I am going to, I believe I had it in here. This was another way I had it. If I go to my iPad, I believe it's right here. It'll show up as anycom.com, and it'll have the name. So we'll import it. Now he's sideways and turned around. So let's go ahead and straighten him out. If I hold shift and I access this blue line, I can turn it in increments. So that was 5 degrees too much. Yeah. Okay. If I look at it from the front, that looks good. Now I'm going to hold shift and turn it negative 90 degrees. I tell you, that's the problem with using the Apple Pencil sometimes. It's a little too sensitive. So when you let go, it will kind of give you an extra tick. All right. You might want to use your finger for this. Will it let you? Will. Shift. Yeah, you can use your finger for turning, and it'll be a lot more accurate. The increments. Let's go back. He looks good. So turn off Gizmo 3D. Now we're actually going to be looking at the bottom a lot. So I'm going to make sure my navigation is on viewport navigation, XYZ axis. If I were to be working on him and sculpting on him, then I would want Y axis only. But since we're going to be looking at the bottom, let's go ahead and leave that. So if we turn on our Polyframe, you can see that this is a decimated mesh. And while that's good for exporting and importing, it is not good for what we're about to do. So we're going to Dynamesh it, and we want to keep the resolution. I think the best detail here to keep track of is this eye. So let's see if we can't Dynamesh this and keep the eye as strong as possible. Let's try 800 and see what happens. Nope. So we need more. No. Just went back there by tapping with 2 fingers. Let's try 1000. Dynamesh. Nope. Let's try 1500 in Dynamesh. We zoom out. He's got the detail. It's still there. It held up pretty well. But let's try 2000 and see what happens. That held up a lot better. That was a heavy file. It's 4.5 million polygons, but that's all right. I feel like that eye is just the most important detail, and that's the level of detail we want to preserve on this. So now we're going to zoom in on the base, and we're going to hold Control Shift, and we're going to select our knife rectangle. The reason we're doing this is if I change this material to flat sketch and I turn on our Polyframe, you'll see that this color that you're seeing, that's our polygroup, right? And there's only one polygroup. And we want to use polygroups as a type of mask, because with that, we can actually hide things and delete hidden things, and we can manipulate our objects in different ways. And if we use our knife rectangle, we can create a new polygroup on the bottom of this. So I'm just going to trim off just a little on the bottom. Now, it always looks like it takes more than I want it to take, and that might be the Apple Pencil's fault. So I'm going to try to be very careful. Yeah. I only took a little bit off. And now we got this new polygroup on the bottom. So if I hold Control Shift and I select the bird, right, I hide that panel that was on the bottom. I want to get rid of that panel. So if I go to my palettes and I go to Tool, I go to Geometry, and I come down to Modify Topology, I can delete hidden. If I tap it again, it'll give me this warning message letting me know that nothing changed because nothing was hidden, so nothing got deleted. Okay. Now this high definition version, we're going to want to preserve, because what we're going to do next is going to kind of ruin the exterior. So let's go to these little dots. So I'm in my tool, subtool. I tap the dots and I'm going to duplicate. All right. So no need to rename anything just yet. I'm going to hide the first one, and I'm going to perform an operation. But before I do that, I'm going to save this because this operation could crash. So I'm just going to name it bird. I'm going back to my palettes, going to subtool, extract. So these are our extraction options. I'm going to turn off double because that will make it grow both inside and outside. We only want it to grow inside. So this thickness needs to be in the negative. So we'll make the thickness negative 0.03. And now SMT is, I don't know what the first S represents, but this SMT is smooth. And without that, when we do this extraction, things are going to look really jagged. But it's going to mess up our exterior too much. So we're just going to put it at 1. And we're going to hit extract and OK. Now, before we touch the screen or manipulate the object, we have to accept. So just from looking at this bottom border, I know that that's what I wanted. that I don't have to make it any thicker than that. So I hit accept. Now, if you see, it has this pattern because you're seeing the white of the object that's underneath. And if you look in the eye, it looks kind of weird, right? Well, that's because if we turn these two off and we compare the two, you already can see it's smoothed out all those details. And that's not what we want. But that's okay because we have polygroups and we saved a version. Actually, we didn't even have to save it because it created its own. The extract comes with the inside and the outside. That's good. So we're going to get rid of this outside. Even though he ended up losing detail, you can still see that in this version. But if we, in this material, if we go back to our other material, matte cap gray, it just kind of lost that detail, lost that sparkle it had. I'm going to go back to flat sketch, and I'm going to hold Control Shift. Let's do this from the bottom so you can actually see what I'm doing. I'm going to hold Control Shift, and I'm going to tap on the bird. And now again, I've hidden all other polygroups other than the one I tapped. But I want the other ones so that I can delete this one. So if you take if you draw a box on the outside while holding Control Shift, it will, oh, whoop, sorry, my bad. I have to have select rectangle selected. So Control Shift, select rectangle, and I draw a box on the outside. Now I get the opposite. I got the inside. I don't have the outside. That's why he looks kind of like a negative. Now again, we're just going to delete. So we go to Geometry, Modify Topology, Delete Hidden. Now we have the inside and the outside, but they're separate. Now before we join these together, let's make sure that there's no weird artifacts. Doesn't look like anything came through. So that's good. We don't have to worry about that. If something had come through, we could push it in because they're separate meshes. So let's say, let's just for instance, create a situation. I'm going to inflate. So I'm going to make my draw size like that big, and I am going to inflate something. Let's see if that works. Does it do anything? No. Let's go ahead and solid transparency. Let's do move. I'm going to move this outside the mesh. Turn this transparency off. Now you see that this is wrong. It's poking through. And because they're separate meshes, one will not affect the other. So we could push it back in or whatever we want to do. All right. Now we're going to join them together. So if we look at our top one and we hit subtools, merge, we can merge down. Now there's a weld option. And the weld option does work a lot of the time, but doesn't always work. We'll just merge down with weld on. And now these objects are the same. But let's see if it actually stuck. So at the bottom of this, you can see that this edge kind of protrudes. So let's go Control Shift, select our knife rectangle again. And let's try slicing a little more off and see what happens. So that weld worked. Now, for you, if the weld doesn't work, you can go to Geometry. You have this option here, Weld Points. Try using weld points with 1. If that doesn't connect all the vertices that are floating around, try raising it to 2, around 2, and weld points, and that should most of the time connect everything up. And then once mostly everything is connected, you can Dynamesh. Now here, I don't think I need to Dynamesh yet. Let's look at our Polyframe. It's looking pretty clean. We could go ahead and Dynamesh this one more time, just for consistency's sake. And there you have it. Turn off Polyframe. I want to show you a trick before I end this. Let's say you wanted to have a bevel on these two edges. If I hit Control Shift and I select this polygroup, I can isolate it and I can mask it. Now, if I hold Control Shift and I tap on the outside, I bring everything back. Let's turn off Polyframe and let's see what we got. So we got a mask going on here. We go up to our tools, masking. We could grow mask. We could sharpen mask. We could grow a mask. We could blur the mask. Right? And it comes up. Now, what are we doing with this? If I hold Control and I tap on the outside, it gives me the opposite selection. From here, I could actually do another trick. If I hold Control Shift and I tap the polygroup again, let's mask this polygroup again. Nope, excuse me. Let's mask this polygroup again. Let's see what our result is. Oop, no, that's not what I wanted. If I go Control Shift and I tap, right? Now I could actually come up here and shrink mask once, maybe twice. Now what would happen if I polish this? So if I come out here and I go to deformation, and they give it a little polish, let's say 6, 7. What is that going to do? Now look what we got here. If I undo this, you got just a slight little bevel. Just looks a little cleaner, right? Instead of it just being a straight, flat edge, you get this little bevel. And so you can play with these types of settings with your future projects. And these are just hard surface sculpting techniques that we'll get into later more with maybe a hard surface project where we can really utilize all the different techniques that polygroups and masking affords us. So to finish this out, let's go ahead and look at this eye again, because I want to use that as my reference point. And let's Dynamesh this because we got way too many polygons right now. We're rocking about 7.4 million. So I'm going to save this project again because the next thing could crash us. So we're going to go to our palettes and go to Decimation Master. And we're going to pre-process current. Cross our fingers. So this pre-processing will allow us to decimate it. And if we don't like the result, we can go back once and we can change the percentage of the decimation. Try that. And we can kind of, without having to go through this whole pre-processing step, we can iterate many times. We can really tune in how much we want to decimate this mesh. Okay, so our pre-processing is finished. I'm going to save one more time. And now I'm going to decimate this. Now I'm going to give it a proper decimation, because the decimation means to make it 1/10, right? 1/10 the size. Decimation. Well, we're going to leave it at 10%. We're going to decimate current. Now that was pretty good. We still have our detail. If I go back to a matte cap gray, you can still see that eye has kept the sheen that it had. And there's other matte caps. I don't really like that. Perfect. And now we only have 744,000 polygons. So now this could be ready to ship off to, you know, whoever is going to create this metal sintered sand printed 3D printed sculpture. And it'll be as light as it can be while maintaining all the strength it needs. Again, look at how devious this guy looks. Amazing.